Hello, ladies and gentlemen, we are approaching the final international break for the third round of Asia World Cup qualification. 2 countries have already booked their World Cup qualification, but we will know a total of 4 more in this month of June. For those that don't know, 3rd and 4th of each group will advance to a 4th round. But 1st and 2nd will finish all their stress and celebrate much earlier than the rest. So yeah, in this video, I'll be doing a final prediction for this 3rd round, match days 9 and 10, going over each and every match and then showing you my final standings at the end for each group. What do you think will happen though? Lots to play for in these final days, so let me know your predictions as always in the comments below. Don't forget to leave an early like, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into it. I think it's smarter to go group by group, so of course, let's start off with Group A. The first match is already massive, the UAE versus Uzbekistan. If you take a look at the current standings, it's 2nd against 3rd. And if Uzbekistan just squeeze a point here, they'll immediately qualify for the World Cup. However, it's not going to be easy, of course. The UAE obviously know what's on the line, but to the point where they face so much pressure that they sacked their manager Paulo Bento. They figured it's better to start fresh with the Romanian manager Olaroiu, who's already been busy at Sharia FC, where the club finished 2nd this year in the league. New tactics from the national team can definitely throw off Uzbekistan. But not just that, Bento was heavily criticized for not bringing the better players throughout the national team's history, like the country's top goal scorer Ali Makbout. Maybe he'll return to the squad, and although he's much older now, he can be a serious threat up top. But maybe we can also see Fabio Lima make even more of an impact than he already has been. Anyway, it's of course not going to be an easy task for the UAE either to overcome a very impressive side like Uzbekistan, who are looking to finally qualify for their first ever World Cup. They've also been going through a battle amongst their managers though. The Slovenian, who did really well Katanets, had to unfortunately step down due to illness, so now they're relying on Timur Kapadze. So far undefeated, picking up a win against Kyrgyzstan and a draw to Iran. That draw against Iran was a tad bit unfortunate though, as had they won it, they would have been the ones to automatically qualify. Regardless, they have this extra layer to bounce off of now. If they lose to the UAE, they still have a chance to qualify by beating Qatar, so hopefully they don't bottle either of those matches. It's a really great side and I want to see them finally do it. Undergoing one of their best generations right now, this side got hard done so many times throughout history to just miss out of World Cup qualification. I think Uzbekistan will qualify for the World Cup this window, and I'll be bold enough to say that it happens in this match against the UAE, where they pick up a 1-1 draw. Regardless, they'll be happy with the result obviously, but it might be tricky away. Moving on to Qatar versus Iran. Iran obviously might not be taking this match as seriously since they already qualified for the World Cup, and Qatar are on very thin ice here. No chance to automatically qualify now, and they need to expand the point gap from Kyrgyzstan, as if they lose both their matches and Kyrgyzstan win both of theirs, they will be eliminated in the 3rd round. Definitely not an ideal match to also play next. They did defeat Iran in the Asian Cup, but Iran are undefeated in this World Cup qualifier campaign so far, and Qatar have looked to be a bit of a mess since the Asian Cup win. The last match was actually a 3-1 loss to Kyrgyzstan, and the last time they faced Iran in the World Cup qualifiers, they lost 4-1 there. They couldn't even defeat North Korea while they had a red card for most of the match. And their one win against Uzbekistan was quite controversial, with their winning goal being scored at 12 minutes of stoppage time. Anyway, with these results, they swapped their managers around a bunch, and now a new start is underway, with the Spaniard Lopetegui now taking charge. He's had quite a crazy resume up until now, and has won silverware along the way. I think with Qatar having more to play for, and them having also some interesting home field advantage going their way at times, I think they have what it takes to get a draw. I'm saying this one finishes 2-2. North Korea versus Kyrgyzstan now. Obviously a much bigger deal for Kyrgyzstan, especially if Qatar drop points to Iran. They're still in the race despite the gap. However, North Korea are the only nation in this round that mathematically do not have a chance anymore. They are simply here to spoil any potential parties. Kyrgyzstan, I think, are showing a lot of promising signs, showing that they are a nation on the rise. They've had some really impressive displays at home, going toe-to-toe with 1st and 2nd in this group. And the last time they faced North Korea, they did pull off a 1-0 victory. North Korea, although they're out, and although Qatar smoked them recently, many times they put off some really close fights in this qualifier campaign. Their last game against the UAE, for example, North Korea nearly squeezed a point against them till Adil Alamiri scored a 98th minute stoppage time winner. Anything's possible here, but I am going to go for the Kyrgyzstan win. I think it will be narrow though, 1-0. Okay, since we're going group by group, we're going to jump to the final match day of Group A, starting off with Uzbekistan versus Qatar. Uzbekistan, if my prediction against the UAE is correct, might not take this match as seriously. But Qatar might not have a lot to play for either if they give enough of a gap for Kyrgyzstan to not catch up. Even with Lopetegui's appointment though, I think Uzbekistan want to show off their strengths one more time in this World Cup qualification campaign. No matter what, I see them winning 2-1 here. Kyrgyzstan versus the UAE. Now, according to what I already had to say, the UAE will already be stuck in their respective place, but Kyrgyzstan still do have a chance to catch up to Qatar. Kyrgyzstan can be quite dangerous at home, but the last time they faced the UAE, they got demolished 3-0. I'm going to root for Kyrgyzstan here, but unfortunately, I still see the UAE winning this one, but with a more narrow scoreline of 2-1. And the final match we're looking at in Group A, Iran versus North Korea. This should be a comfortable win for Iran, and this one is also essentially a friendly at the moment, as neither of these sides really have any weight on their shoulders. North Korea could obviously surprise, but I'm going to say Iran win this one 3-1. Anyway, here's my final table for Group A if this all comes true. We've got Iran at first with 24 points, Uzbekistan at second with 21, the UAE at third with 17, Qatar at fourth with 11, Kyrgyzstan at fifth with 9th, and North Korea at dead last with just 2 points. I do think the most pressure for this window does go to Uzbekistan. They are in too good of a position to bottle things now, and this nation are desperate to finally qualify for a World Cup. So hopefully they don't flop this international break, but I'm sticking with them finishing second place. We move on to Group B now though. As you can see from the standings, a lot tighter of a race. Start out with Oman versus Jordan. Both these sides have never qualified for a World Cup and still have the chance to for this campaign. Jordan with the advantage at second place with only 1 loss so far to South Korea, but Oman, although they have 4 losses, are only 3 points behind them. They still have just as many wins. The last time they faced though, Jordan whooped them 4-0 at home, so Oman definitely need to brush it up here. Jordan right now, apart from those odd friendlies they scheduled against Zenit, are undefeated in 7 matches. Recently though, they have not been looking as explosive compared to the Asian Cup performances though. Their manager's shift to Salami definitely has them at times playing a bit more cautious, which does cost them. But in this fixture in particular, I think they have what it takes to get the job done and maybe directly qualify in this third round with a 2-0 victory against Oman. Moving on now to Iraq versus South Korea. South Korea should have qualified in the last window, but they have now picked up 3 consecutive 1-1 draws to Palestine, Oman, and Jordan.
Yeah, easy.
South Korea are one of the most technically gifted teams in this group. There's no question about it. But their problem is at the moment, they cannot handle the aggression well from their opposition. Oman's goal against them is the perfect example. Just non-stop pressing eventually gifted them their equalizer. And it would have been good for South Korea as Iraq's manager Jesus Casas was playing too cautious and conservative, barely scraping through sometimes against opposition. However, now he's been sacked, and they appointed Graham Arnold, the man who led Australia to World Cup glory in 2022. Despite his great campaign in the actual tournament, his qualification campaign back then was also quite unstable, and many were also questioning if he was the right man for the job. But he proved the critics wrong, and Australians just seem to have a different level of confidence.
Season 3 is better than Season 2.
Confidence is exactly what Iraq need at the moment. Jesus Casas started to get a bit too nervous and hesitant with his lineups, tactics. It was not the cleanest football, and they dropped far too many points in the last international break. Only a draw to Kuwait and a loss to Palestine. Now, will Graham Arnold figure it out right away? That's another story, but he definitely has the toughest opposition on paper to deal with this early on. I'm really torn about this prediction. I really could see it going either way though, with the Iraq maybe squeezing through with the result to really push through on pressure for that final match day. You know what? I'm gonna go for it. South Korea left frustrated to Iraq with the 3-2 loss. Call me crazy, but that's my upset. Kuwait versus Palestine next, the 2 bottom teams that are mathematically still in the race if Oman go on to lose. Kuwait have yet to get a win, but picked up the most amount of draws, a total of 5. While Palestine picked up their first win against Iraq in their last match. Palestine have actually been playing great football, always providing competition, just getting hindered by individual mistakes. I'd say they have some forwards that could definitely cause damage in a fixture like this, such as Abu Ali. He scored the last time against Kuwait where that match finished in a 2-2 draw. A similar outcome is destined here, a 1-1 draw where both of these sides' World Cup dreams are shattered even more. Match day 10 though will be intense to see who ends up qualifying at the end. South Korea versus Kuwait first. Although I predicted South Korea to lose against Graham Arnold's first match in charge, a surprising result I know, I still see them qualifying for the World Cup at the end. They just cannot bottle it here, but they won't. I'm saying they win 3-0. This will be the match to watch though. Jordan versus Iraq. So many storylines, of course, with how close of a campaign it will be. Whoever wins this will qualify for the World Cup in this third round based off of my predictions. Jordan on 16 points, Iraq on 15, and going off of their last match in this World Cup qualifier campaign, it finished in a 0-0 draw. But in the Asian Cup, let's not forget what happened in the round of 16, a 3-2 thriller filled with drama going for Jordan. The atmosphere in Jordan will be at an all-time high, as this is the nation's perfect chance to qualify for their first ever World Cup. And with Graham Arnold potentially having a strong start with Iraq against Korea, I still think Jordan will be able to have an advantage here, especially with them playing at home, but still more drama unfolding. I think it will finish 2-1. Iraq go to the fourth round, and Jordan qualify for their first ever World Cup. Before I break down those final standings, let's go over that last match, Palestine versus Oman. Went for a lot of draws here, and I think this one will finish in one as well, 0-0. That leaves it with South Korea topping the group with 19 points, but Jordan are at second also with 19. Iraq in third with 15, Oman at fourth with 11, Palestine in fifth with 8, and Kuwait in last with 5. Sorry if I got your hopes up, Iraq, but I do think you will have what it takes to advance from that fourth round. We move on to our final group now, Group C, starting off with Australia versus Japan. Now, Australia have not beaten Japan since 2009, which is a wild stat. However, that could all change here. Japan have not selected their finest squad this international break since they already secured World Cup qualification. A lot of new emerging players are getting the chance to shine, and Australia, of course, have all to play for. They are second at the moment, 3 points in front of Saudi Arabia, and will play them in matchday 10, but a win against Japan would help them out a lot for sure. Simply due to the fact that Japan are not taking their strongest squad, I think Australia have what it takes to defeat them here. The Socceroos playing at home as well, I'm predicting a 2-0 victory for them over the more inexperienced players from Japan. Moving on to Indonesia versus China. Can China catch up and maybe clinch onto a 4th place spot, or will Indonesia continue their incredible run? Mixed emotions under Kluivert's new rule, a huge loss to Australia in their first match in charge, but he fixed himself up a few days later against Bahrain. China, despite being last, definitely will not be pushovers. In fact, the last time these two nations faced, China were the ones victorious. It's a bit hard to judge China's current run on form, as yes, they did lose their last 3 matches in a row, but they were all to the better sides on paper in this group. They definitely improved and structured their team better after that 7-0 wake-up call against Japan on the first match day. I still think Indonesia sacking Shin Tae-yong was not a good call, but they still have every reason to believe, as although China already did defeat them, they are still not the strongest side in this group. And they'll face Japan next, who, like I said, did not take their strongest lineup this international break. I'm on the fence about this one. China can definitely burst into the scene again with a fixture like this, but I'm going to say Indonesia win this one 1-0. Moving on to Bahrain versus Saudi Arabia. Favorite on paper, but there's no denying that Saudi Arabia have been underwhelming. In fact, the last time they played, Bahrain picked up an away draw. That was during Mancini's rule though. He's been sacked now, and they've got Hervé Renard. The man who upset Argentina in the 2022 World Cup is back with the team. Bahrain only got 1 win so far, but their road has arguably been slightly impressive. Never losing to Australia and still undefeated to Saudi Arabia so far. If they bounce back, that would be a massive statement for their manager Dragan Talaic, but I don't see it. I think Saudi Arabia will grab a 1-0 win. Okay, so now on to matchday 10. First up, Japan versus Indonesia. Can Japan give at least a point to Indonesia? If they do, that would obviously keep them safe in their quest to at least secure 4th place. I'm very interested to see what Moriyasu has up his sleeve with this new crop of talent. Obviously, it's not their strongest squad, but we still cannot fully underestimate them. Although Indonesia will fight hard, I still think Japan will scrape through for a 2-1 victory. China versus Bahrain will definitely be a big one if in the previous match day, either of these countries prove me wrong and pick up some points. It's a toss-up, very 50-50, but I do see China getting the win with a 1-0 victory, just like in their last meeting. The match with the most on the line, though, is Saudi Arabia versus Australia. These guys are really neck and neck right now. Even if Australia do defeat Japan, that doesn't necessarily mean they're safe from Saudi Arabia. Last time they met, it finished in a 0-0 draw. Both sides couldn't be separated. And I think that's a result Toni Popovic will strive for here once again, as that's all he'd essentially need to guarantee they've qualified for the World Cup. I think Saudi's quality will definitely be a proper threat to Australia here. Playing at the King Abdullah Stadium should obviously give a huge advantage, but in this World Cup qualifier campaign, that statement is not really existent anymore. Under Hervé Renard, they could definitely strive for a victory, but I think it will finish 0-0 again. I backed the Socceroos since the beginning to get that second place spot, so I see them just edging Saudi Arabia here. But no doubt, Saudi Arabia should be one of the favorites for that fourth round. So my final standings for Group C are as follows. Japan have already locked down first place for a while. They'll finish it with 23 points. Australia in second with 17, Saudi Arabia in third with 14, Indonesia fourth with 12, China fifth with 9, and Bahrain at last with 6. Definitely the Australia and the Saudi Arabia placement is the biggest toss-up for this group, so let me know your predictions on that in the comments below, along with everything else in this video. Thank you all for making it to the end, and best of luck to your nation on these final days of the third round in Asia World Cup qualification. Of course, once the fourth round groups are announced, we'll dive into all of that as well. Take care, la cu noite.